you said breaking points, and for William, especially, you're going so fast and the track is so long. So all those little breaking points add up to, a lot more than on any other track, just because, X amount of corners times how fast you do the corner, that's your race time. And I wanted to find out from Loic what was it? He's never won here. It's only this track and Val de Sol, the two tracks he's never won. And I didn't realize that about Val de Sol, and they've both been on the circuit for quite some time. So I was like, so why? What happened in all the previous ones? So a lot of Fort William he's come at it from an injury, like come straight after Croatia, or so there's been that. And then there's a few times where he's been caught out, got on the unlucky side of the weather. But the other main things that's hindered his potential race winning here, he says, is braking, inconsistent braking. Okay, so what does that mean? And then what did they do to basically have that not be an issue this race? So he said, when it's wet or sometimes wet or misty at the top, but then dry in the rest of the track, or you got wind and you got puddles, and you got, so for William, you often, it can be wet, and everyone says it's grippier, the dirt is grippier when it's wet. But one thing which I never realized, because when when you're riding, your brakes are wet, your pads or your rotors, your braking is different, right? And as regular riders, this, but you don't really, that just it's part of riding your bike in the wet, especially when you go from dry to wet. When you bed in your brake pads, you can feel when you use water and when you don't use water. So now imagine you're someone like Bruni, going the fastest human being on the face of the earth, and how a tiny bit of, and Greg Minnaar's one that's super picky about braking as well. And when you're carrying so much speed, and it's all about late braking and braking correctly and having your right amount of braking, if your braking is slightly off, or more importantly, inconsistent, what's that noise? Oh, it's a motorbike. It'll throw you off your game. So Loic said a lot of his not getting a win here is slightly inconsistent braking. So one of the things they planned for, this brake cover that you saw on Loic's bike. And, these mountain bikers love to look like moto and stuff. So I just thought it was along those lines. And it goes to Finn. Okay, so the 3 of the 4 guys that I spoke to that were on the podium, it's all has a similar theme, and it's how hard they work to fix those problems or those marginal gains. And in Loic's case, braking was an issue why he hasn't won here in the past. And to fix that, they didn't want the brakes getting wet in some places or puddle of mud going there. So that was the point of the sort of brake protector. So if there's little splashes, even though they raced in the almost dry, that was one of the things, and it paid off. Can you say his brakes stayed consistent all the way through the run? Yeah, probably. Did that help his win? Yeah, maybe, because in the past it's cost him the win. And then you go on to who's done the most work, which you spoke about, sort of the Canyon and Finn. Finn is now on the suspension I think Loic has been on earlier last year. So they kind of got a level playing field. And he said him and Kev quite recently had 3 massive days getting the bike dialed. And this is like the full-time year-round work that we don't see. And we only get to see the racing for 5-6 months. But these guys, if you're going to end up on the podium with this first race, they literally have been working, not just on training and stuff, but so close with their mechanics. Even if you watch Troy's vlog, the little things, him, and I never watch vlogs, but at 3 a.m, everyone else has gone to sleep and I'm still editing. So I like, what's new? And I listen to a fucking vlog, and it's Troy and Aaron going back and forth, and these tiny changes that they made on his shock settings, it literally made all the difference to Troy, and those are things that they've worked at, and because they're on new suspension as well, they've had to work at closer to the time. And when me and you, well, not you, because you were more in tune with the product, but when I changed, like I can literally go 2 or 3 clicks of high and low either way, and it still kind of feels the same, and it doesn't affect my speed. But these guys do 1 click of either one, and pressure, or never mind shim stacks, because they're changing those too, and it can mean like literally the difference between a podium run and not a podium run. So when you're at the top end of the pointy, sharp end of the stick, those it's just marginal gains.